Hello, I'm Joe Price. I'm a professor of economics here at BYU, and I'm the director of the Record Linking Lab. I'm going to be talking about how we could link together the entire human family on the family tree. In the Record Linking Lab, we've been developing some tools to make this possible. And so I really hope that what you get is an appreciation for some of these tools and some of the technologies that are making family history more accessible to more people. And then I also hope you feel inspired to find your own project. We'll talk about this concept of lift where you stand. And I hope what happens is that you come up with a project that you want to do and that you find ways to involve youth in this project, that you reach out to your community, that you use it as a way to draw everyone to participate in family history. And the reason I feel so strongly about that is that I discovered family history about 5 years ago, and it's changed every aspect of my life. It's the thing I most love doing. It's what I spend most of my free time doing. And so I was just so grateful a few years ago to be able to take the thing I love most in my life and combine it with my work here at BYU. As an economist, we often need data that links people over long periods of time so we can study intergenerational mobility or the longer impacts of different programs. And so once I discovered that I could combine my love of family history with economic research, we were able to create a lab, the Record Linking Lab, and we've been able to have many students involved in these projects. And some of the things I'm going to show you are just amazing and are opening up lots of opportunities. So here is some information about the Record Linking Lab. You can go to the website if you want, but the three things we do is computer vision, which is extracting text from images. We do natural language processing, which is turning that text into usable data. And then we do record linking, which is taking a person in one record and then linking them to other records for that same person. And ultimately, our goal is to make it possible to convert any historic record into usable and linkable data to help people find their family. So let me just give you one example of how this whole process works. We sent students to a library at Harvard University, and they took pictures of records of students that attended Harvard in the early 1900s. We then used computer vision to extract text from those images. We used natural language processing to draw out the information from that text, names, dates, and places. And then we linked each of those Harvard students from the Harvard records to their census records when they were living with their parents, and then forward in time to the census records when they had their own family. And so we could study the longer impact of experiences that they had while they were at Harvard. In particular, we're looking at the impact of your roommate and the people that live near you while you were there on campus. So here are some of the goals we have as a lab this year. And these are things I'll talk about in more detail, but our goals are to auto-index historical records. We're creating a census tree, which is, if you think about what the family tree is, it's a linked set of people that we've created as a group on Family Search. You can have a machine do a similar exercise, but by linking people together with their family members via records. We're also trying to help new converts find 100 names to take to the temple. We're trying to improve the experience for African Americans. We're creating discovery experiences at museums. We're indexing, transcribing automatically missionary journals, and then we're doing community reconstitution projects. So let me talk about some of these projects in a little more detail, and then we'll talk about ways that you could come up with your own project that relates to some of the things we're doing. But also what I hope is that as you think about these projects, you might be inspired to think about completely new ways to do family history. I think the most important thing is to have lots of different ways that people can do family history so that it can touch them in the way that matters most to them. My personal experience is that when actually my personal story was I was at Education Week and I went to a family history class and I felt strongly that I should get involved in family history. I didn't know quite what that meant, but I just felt like it was what I needed to do. And I went and started doing family history, trying to find a name to take to the temple. I spent about 20 hours and I found nothing. And I was about to give up. I thought, oh, my Uncle Sean probably did everything. And then I found one new person that I could add to the tree. And I went and did the temple work for them at the Provo Temple, and it just changed my life. And since then, I found lots of other family members that I had overlooked when I was beginning. And it was because I was approaching family history in a particular way. And once I broadened my vision to see it in different ways, it became a really neat experience. So one of our goals this year is auto-indexing. And I'll show you later some of the computer part of this. But one of the things I love about what we do in our lab is we try to think about what the computer does best and what the human does best and allow the two to work together to be much faster than either of them could do on their own. Now, let me be clear, the machine is always faster, but the human has some enormous advantages. So if we combine the two, we can do really well. So this picture you see here is a tool we've developed called reverse indexing. And if you actually hold your camera up to that QR code on the screen, it'll take you right to it and you can try it out. But the thing I love about reverse indexing is it works well on a phone. It works well for younger children that maybe can't type very well yet. It could work for people that maybe have a disability that prevents them from typing fast, but are quick at recognizing patterns. So what you're seeing here on the left is a screenshot from the app for my name. And the neat thing about this is you can also create a customized experience. So you could say, I want to do price or pain or something like that. And what it'll do is it'll show you all of the images that the machine thinks is that name. So what you're seeing here is examples of price that the machine thinks is price. Now, I had a really great experience with this right before Roots Tech. We were giving a demo at the Roots Tech booth, and I wanted to try this out with my 5-year-old daughter. And so I sat down with her and I said, Molly, I want to teach you how to index. And she looked at the screen and she says, I don't know how to read fancy writing. And I said, oh, don't worry, I'll teach you. We're just going to learn one word. It's the word price. It's our family name. And I said, let's look at the word price. And let's start with the letter P. So we looked at the letter P and look across these examples right here. You can see that actually even a 5-year-old could learn what a P looks like. So that was a really cool experience. And then we skipped the R because we both agreed it's a weird letter, but then we focused on the I. And notice the I has this dot that's easy to see. And so she started getting better at noticing the P and the I. And then we focused on the C and the E. And then we came back to the R finally. And the neat thing about this is she got good at actually telling which of these was the word price. And notice in this example, in the upper right is probably the only one that's not clear if it's price or not. So then what you would do is you would just click on that one box and then you'd hit submit, and you've just indexed 11 names. Okay? If you focus on a particular surname, you can do these very, very quickly. You can index probably, you can index hundreds and hundreds of names this way, and it's a really neat experience. We're also moving now out to other fields. You could index cause of death. You could index occupation. We're also really curious to see, could you index a language that you don't even speak? So we're going to be using this tool on Portuguese records, where we sometimes lack indexers. But the fact is, if I showed you a whole bunch of examples of a surname, you could probably learn to recognize that surname. And the thing I love about this is children are natural pattern recognizers. And so we could actually draw a lot more people to help with indexing. I don't think any of us have ever thought about having a 5-year-old index before. I think it would probably scare some people if we tried that. But with reverse indexing, it's possible if they have a coach or a mentor or a parent guiding them. Now, for all the ones that you click and say, I don't think that's what it is, it gets loaded into another app called mobile indexing, which you see on the right. And with mobile indexing, we show you the original image, and then we show you some things we think it might be, and then you always have the option to type in what you think it is. So if you don't think any of the options are right, then it's just like normal indexing. But again, one of the powerful things about this is that if it's right, you just click one of the buttons, and it doesn't involve any typing. Now, if you don't think any of the options are correct, you can always hit that little arrow and just skip it, okay? And again, if you want to try this out, you can scan that QR code and try that out. With this, so that's our second goal then is to create a census tree for the United States. The census tree is like the family tree, except it's built based on records. And there was about 217 million people that lived in the United States that appear in at least one census between 1850 and 1940. The census tree will include all of them. Each one of them will have a row. And that row will tell you, then the columns will tell you, this is this person in this census, and in this census, and then this census. So your grandpa or great-grandpa may have appeared in 5 censuses, and you would see each of those census records, and you could see the information from each of those census records. The census tree also then tells you who the father, mother, spouse, siblings, children of that person is. And so with these two pieces of information, data from the census and then the relationships, you could reconstruct a tree that looks just like the family tree with much of the same information. Now, the neat thing is the census tree and the family tree can talk to each other. In fact, we've used the family tree to create the training data to create the family census tree. And now that the census tree is getting more complete than the family tree, it can give insights back to the family tree. These could come back as record hints. And so what we've done is we've taken a lot of these record hints and created an app that gives you customized record hints. Now keep in mind, this is kind of a change in the way we think about family history. Normally with family history, we're doing our own family, What we're saying here is let's grow the tree wherever that needs to happen. In fact, sometimes we talk about it as my tree. I think it's probably a step up to say it's our tree, but I really think the most powerful thing happens is when we think of it as his tree. And when we're growing his tree, then it doesn't matter where we grow it. Now there's rules about who we can do temple work for, but that's different than what we can do in terms of growing the tree. So if you want, you can use this app. You could type in a surname, and you're going to see record hints for people with that surname. You could also type in a place, and it'll give you record hints for people in that place. And as you do those record hints, you're attaching census records to those people. Another goal we have this year is to help converts find 100 names to take to the temple. You're probably asking, well, why 100? That seems like a lot. What we want to have happen in the life of a new convert is for them to feel connected and loved by their Heavenly Father in the temple. And so how do you get someone to want to go to the temple more often? You give them a meaningful reason to be there each week. So if we were to find you 3 names, we feel like the signal that sends is that you should go to the temple and maybe just by yourself. If we were to find 100 names, I think what's likely to happen is that people will start to go to the temple on a regular basis, and they'll probably invite other people to go with them. I can't think of a better way, a better experience for a new convert than to go to the temple with the Relief Society president or with the Young Men's president. So we really want to make that possible. We want to make it possible so that that new convert can have that stack of temple cards and be excited to go to the temple. And we'd love, this is a place where you can volunteer. We have volunteers helping us right now with the McAllen, Texas mission and also the Columbia, South Carolina mission. And in those 2 missions, we're helping new converts and investigators and other people grow their family tree so they can have temple experiences if they're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or they can have discovery experiences. Another goal we have this year is to increase the coverage of Black families on the family tree. We did some analysis of the family tree by comparing it to the census, and we find that actually over 70% of white people in the 1900 census are on the family tree. I think that number is much higher than anyone would ever imagine, but the tree is actually very, very good for white families. If you look at the same estimates for Black families in the 1900 census, it's 4%. Okay, so you have this disparity of over 15 times. And what we want to do is try to help achieve racial equality on the family tree. So one thing we've done already is we chose 14 counties to start with, and we have been growing the family tree for those 14 counties. We've now extended to entire states. We've done all of South Carolina, all of Virginia, all of Texas, all of Delaware, and we're currently working on Georgia right now. Let me show you some stats for those counties. But this is a project that we just love. It's been a really neat experience. And so let me show you some stats. So here are some of those counties that we started with. And you can see the number of people in each of those counties that were on the tree to start with. And that was in September 2019. And then you can see that as of February this year, we basically went from 28,000 of these people being on the tree to 409,000 people on the tree. And so now the coverage rate is 73%. That's what we were aiming for. We wanted to basically achieve racial equality on the coverage on the family tree. And so now all of these Black families are on the family tree. And now what we're doing is we're working with volunteers to help us add additional records, connect those families with other families, try to make it so that the experience that an African American has when they go on the family tree is similar to what happened when a white person goes onto the tree. Because really what we want is we want people to have a fantastic experience finding their family and not feel frustrated by having a hard time maybe pushing the tree out. Another thing we want to do to engage the public with family history is create discovery experiences at museums. Wouldn't it be cool that when you go to an art museum, you could know which of those artists were your ancestor? And so we created a little pamphlet that people could use when they go to the BYU Art Museum, but we're thinking of ways to extend this discovery experience to other museums that, maybe museums in Chicago or New York City or Charleston or other cities. And the neat thing is we can set one of these pamphlets, one of these discovery experiences up in just a few hours. And so if that's something you'd be interested in doing in your town, I'm excited for when the Historical Society Museum in Springville opens up again. I'd love to do this for that. And so really what you do is you just need to gather information about the people who are depicted in the museum. And then if you share that information with us, then we can help link them to the family tree and create a discovery experience for people. We're also, these last two are kind of smaller projects that we're doing, but I think they're things that we'll have a bigger presence in the future. As we've been working on handwriting recognition, we've started to wonder, well, what would people most want to be able to search? Because once you've done the handwriting recognition, then the record becomes searchable. So I have a son serving a mission, and so I became really interested in being able to share stories from my dad's mission journal with him. And so what I did was I took pictures of my dad's mission journal, and then we've been using some of the same tools that we do to auto-index other records to auto-index my dad's mission journal. And so for his birthday just a few days ago, I was able to give him a copy of his journal that's fully searchable. It's about 600 pages, and now everything's been transcribed, and you can find people, places, any words that are used, and so that's a pretty cool experience. And so we're hoping to make these tools better so it can work for more and more people. But what I would love to have is the ability for people to take a mission journal of their grandpa and maybe have the mission journals of all the other people serving in the same mission at the same time and create stories about our ancestors that involve multiple viewpoints, multiple perspectives. And I think that this ability to make mission journals searchable will open up that possibility. The last thing we're trying to do is community reconstitution projects. And so the way to think about this is you pick a group of people. So for you, it might be just your city. You might just say, I want to make sure that everyone living in Springville, Utah is on the family tree. And so there's ways that you can go and make sure that each of those families is on the tree, and then you can connect them to other people. And what this allows you to do is think about how connected that community is. And if you do this for your community, then you can invite the community to use Family Search and see how they're related to each other. Now, the same process that you can do with a specific community like Springville, you could do for an entire country. So right now, we are going to be working with census records from the Czech Republic. And what we do is we auto-index those records, and then we can link those records together to create a census tree for the entire Czech Republic, and then think about ways to bring the information from the census tree onto the family tree as a way to then invite the general public to use the family tree. I think my biggest fear about the Czech Republic right now is if I were to say to someone in the Czech Republic, hey, come use the family tree, check it out, they wouldn't see anything. They wouldn't find anything for their family, and they're going to have a bad experience. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. What we're saying is let's get this egg to start laying chickens and grow that family tree for different communities. Now, for most of us in the United States, our communities are already have a really strong presence in the family tree, so what we would largely be doing is kind of filling that out. But for a country like Czech Republic, this could be a game-changing experience, and we're hoping to do this for other countries and other places. So I think the thing I want to emphasize is what makes all of this work is the fact that you can have artificial intelligence and human discernment interact with each other. We're not advocating that AI does everything. We're not advocating that humans do everything. It's really the blend of the two that will be the most powerful way to grow the family tree and create discovery experiences. So for AI and humans to interact, you need to have a shared platform. You need to have a place where they're contributing together, and you need to have a way for them to give feedback to each other. And we think the family tree is almost a perfect platform for AI-human interaction. Because it's very easy for humans to correct mistakes made by AI and for AI to provide suggestions to humans of errors that should be fixed. And then the neat thing is what we're doing is we're using all of the decisions that humans have been making on the family tree for the last 100 years to teach the machine how to mimic the kind of decisions that a human makes. And then the machine will have insights that teach the human how to look for records. Every time you look at a record hint, what you should think of is AI helped me out. And that's really what's going on. So let me talk about some of the guiding principles in our lab, because sometimes, we have an approach that we're thinking of doing, and you might say, I don't think that's the right approach. So I think rather than us disagreeing about the approach we should use, we might say, well, what are the principles that are undergirding our decision about what approach to take? So I just wanted to be really transparent about what the principles are that are guiding our lab. And this might help you in your own life as you think about family history to say, well, what are the principles that underlie how I approach family history? Because the honest truth is there's so many different things, so many different projects that my lab could take on, that we need to make sure that the projects we take on or that the projects that you take on are in line with the principles that kind of underlie the way you think about family history. So let me just share these principles that we have, and I think it'll give you a good idea about what motivates us and how we decide what projects to take on. So the first is that God wants all of his children gathered in one place. The second is God wants everyone involved in family history. The third is that the family tree is God's tree and anyone can help anywhere on that tree. The fourth principle is God does not require perfect participants. He allows for mistakes. The fifth principle is skill comes from practice. And the last principle is that flow occurs when ability matches the difficulty of the task and the task is meaningful. So hopefully these principles are the kind of principles that you would adopt, but it's really helpful then to think about, let me give some examples of where these principles might be helpful. So we often will bring youth into the lab to help with a project. And anytime you bring youth to work on the family tree, I think the adults get a little nervous. They're like, oh my goodness, what are the youth going to do on the tree? Like, are they going to mess it up? Are they going to cause trouble? Well, let's think about that decision. So here we have an interesting decision. Should we let a youth group come in and make edits to the family tree? Or more broadly, should we let people that are brand new at family history make edits to the tree? Or do we want to kind of protect the tree from novices? In fact, I've been doing family history for just a few years, and I go back and look at some of the decisions I made early on, and I'm like, maybe that wasn't the best decision. The question is, should we have maybe throttled my ability to edit the tree? Well, let's take this youth event in the context of some of these principles. So God wants everyone involved in family history. Does the youth event accomplish that principle? Of course. We want all those youth doing family history. We want them involved in indexing. We want them involved in growing the tree. We want them involved in attaching sources, uploading memories. Okay? The family's tree is God's tree, and anyone can help anywhere on that tree. So these youth, maybe what will happen is their own tree is very complicated, and there's mostly the work left to do is really hard. So maybe we could take those youth and put them somewhere else on the tree and help grow God's tree in a place where their skills will be a better match. We also need something, like skills come through practice. And so some of these youth activities can provide the type of experiences we need for youth to develop those skills. And then really, I think like a youth activity can be curated in a way that the things we're asking them to do are in line with the things that they're going to be best suited to do. So when we create record hints, we have the ability to separate record hints into those that are likely to be very easy and those that are likely to be very hard. And so if we're going to ask a youth to help us out, we might just give them record hints that are really easy and then let them graduate to harder ones as they get more experience. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how big the project is. So what we want to do is we want to gather all of God's children in one place on the family tree. So let's talk about that a little bit. So probably the best estimate of how many people have lived on Earth is 107 billion, though it ranges from under 100 billion to up to 120 billion. Based on kind of estimates that Ron Tanner shared in a webinar a while ago, each year we add about 47 million people to the family tree, though lately this has gotten faster. And so that seems awesome until you think about the fact that each year about 55 million people die on Earth. And so even if we ignored like all the new people that are dying each year and just focus on those that have ever lived, at the current pace, it's going to take 2,300 years to get everyone on the family tree. So you might ask if that's a reasonable pace. I think that's a little long. But here's the thing that's exciting, is that if we can 10x this twice, then we could actually have every single one of God's children on the family tree within the next 25 years. And the thing I like about the concept of 10xing something is I think it allows you to start to think about new and creative ways to grow the tree. And so let me talk about 3 ways that we could get our first 10x, and then I'll explain how I think the second 10x will happen. So I'm actually very optimistic that we're going to 10x this thing twice. I think there's lots of things in motion right now that are making this possible, but let me just kind of illustrate 3 ways that I think it could happen. The first way that 10x could happen is just have 10 million users on the family tree, add 50 people each year. I think that tree extending hints will play a key role in this. So let me explain what a tree extending hint is. I actually discovered a tree extending hints from an 8-year-old, so I'll just tell you that story really briefly. I work at the Family History Center, and a mom came in with her son to do some family history, and they just asked me to, watch the kid so that she can do real family history. And so I just pulled out my phone, and I had his mom log in to Family Search, and I just taught this 8-year-old boy how to use the task button in the mobile app to attach sources. And again, I was mentoring and coaching him through the process. So he would look at it and say, I think this is a match. And I'd say, yeah, I agree. And so then he would attach that source. And he was doing this. And actually, children are really fantastic learners. They're really good at recognizing patterns and looking for clues. In fact, they do that all the time when they play video games. They're much better at pattern recognition and looking for clues than any of us adults are. And so I was really impressed at how well he was doing at this task, until he got to a record hint that looked like the one that you see on your screen right here on the left. And he said, Brother Price, I'm a little confused. I'm not sure what to do here. He says, a lot of these people match. He says, William matches and Lida matches and Mage match and Mabel matches. But there's some people that don't match. He says Cecil, Wilma, and Lida, the daughter, don't match. And so you might think for a second what you would tell him. What has he just found? Does that mean this is not a good match? I said, this is a fantastic match. In fact, this is one of the best matches you could have ever found. And I said, you've just found 3 new people that can be added to the tree. So notice, this is what we call a tree extending hint. It's a record hint in which some of the people on the record are on the family tree and other people are not. And so every time you attach one of those tree extending hints, you're adding new people to the tree. And so if we were to develop ways for people to access tree extending hints, then you could have people grow the tree very, very fast. So this would allow lots and lots of people to add 50 people to the tree or 100 people. And so here you have a picture of my daughter Molly that I mentioned earlier. I was coaching and mentoring her on hints, except this time, rather than leaving the tree extending hints up to chance, in which this kid was able to find one just through luck, I was giving her tree extending hints every single time. And she was able to add 200 new people to the family tree just during that time that we were working together on the computer. I also worked with a youth group that came into our lab, and they were able to add about 2,400 people to the tree. Many of the youth also added over 100 people during that little 1-hour activity. We've now done this with lots of youth groups, and so this is a really fantastic way for lots of people to contribute a little bit. Now, another way to get 10x is just to have some super users, like cultivate a team of super users. And so if there were 20,000 people who could add 25,000 people each year to the tree, then we would get a 10x. And the nice thing is now on the mobile app, there's a feature called My Contributions. And now just recently on the computer, there's also that My Contributions. And if you click on My Contributions, you can hit Stats and then People, and it'll tell you how many people you've added to the tree each year. And so if you'd love to become part of a team of these super users, definitely we would love for you to reach out to the Record Linking Lab. And we can provide you with tools that allow you to dramatically increase the number of people you're adding to the tree. Some of you are already doing so much to contribute to the tree, and all we want to do is just take the way you're doing it now and maybe giving you some enhanced tools that will allow you to make your time even more effective. The third way we could do this is just take everyone who's currently using the tree, wherever they happen to be, and help them be twice as effective, spend twice as much time, and invite one other person to do the same. Okay, you'd have 2 times 2 times 2, pretty close to 10. And I think the way that we can help people spend twice as much time doing family history is by showing them ways to do family history on their phone. If you haven't tried family history on your phone, you really should. The thing that helped me the most was for an entire month, I did all of my family history on a phone. And at first it was really frustrating and I felt very limited. I'm used to having my 2 screens. I'm kind of looking at lots of things at once. And I was like, what would the family history experience be like for someone in Haiti or in Brazil where they don't have access to a computer and the way they interact with family history is through a phone? And this was a really neat experience. It helped me find ways to do family history on my phone and also for us to develop tools that work on your phone. Now, one of the amazing things that will happen if you learn how to do family history on your phone is you'll find many more opportunities to do family history. You'll do family history when you're waiting for an appointment or when you're traveling or other things. You could also have a family reunion. It's very rare at a family reunion for you to have enough computers for everyone to participate. But this is my own family reunion. And in fact, everyone was on a phone and they were able to participate in a family history activity as a group. So I'd really encourage you. I think one way we're going to get more people participating in family history and more people spending more time doing family history is by doing it on their phone. So those are the 3 ways to get the first 10x. Basically, we could help a lot of people find 50 names, which I think we could do through tree extending hints. we could have a smaller group of people find a whole bunch of names, which I think we could do through some of the tools I'll talk about later. Or what we could do is just take whatever you're doing now and just give you tools that make you just a little bit more effective, make you want to do family history a little bit more, and then invite someone else to do the same. Now, where does the second 10x come from? Well, the neat thing is that the first 10x can come mostly from people that are already using Family Search, or by having those people invite one other person. The second 10x comes through Metcalfe's law, which is that the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of users. So the second 10x actually comes through network externalities. So if you think about the early years of Facebook, it was limited to some Ivy League colleges. As more and more people started to use Facebook, the value of using Facebook went up, and now everyone in the world uses Facebook. The fact is that if you take a genealogical platform like Family Search or Ancestry or others, as more people use those platforms, the value of using the platform goes up, and so everyone's going to want to use it. So I think that as we grow the family tree at Family Search and also improve the coverage of family trees on Ancestry, you're going to see more and more people want to be part of family history because they're going to have a higher probability of discovering something that's meaningful to them. Okay. So what I'm saying is there's some ways to get the first 10x, and then the first 10x will just naturally create the second 10x through these network externalities. So let me talk then about a process, a way to think about how to involve everyone in family history. And this is where I really want you to think about your own situation and ask yourself, you know, how can I get involved in family history? What's a project that I could take on? And I want you to think about your project through the lens of these four things. So the first step is indexing, which is just creating the raw materials that's going to make everything else possible. So if you live in a place where there's records that have never been indexed, you know, you could start by thinking about ways that those records could become indexed. The second is then to link those records to other records and people on the tree. The third is to grow the tree, and the fourth is to engage the general public. So let me show you each of these four steps. Okay, the first step is computer-assisted indexing. Okay, now you don't have to have the computer-assisted part. If you want to go and do an indexing project, I think that's fantastic. The degree to which people are reaching out and finding these local collections and trying to make them digitized, searchable, online, public, is fantastic. I was actually just I was at a conference this morning. It was a virtual conference in China, and someone has the 1840 census for the Ottoman Empire. It includes the entire population, and they're segmenting this census and then extracting the data. So I would think of that as a collection that has enormous importance to people whose ancestors were part of the Ottoman Empire. And so that would be a local project that might have a lot of interest. It might even be as simple as maybe you have some high school yearbooks for your community, and it'd be neat if those high school yearbooks were searchable. Now, some of those are searchable through companies online, but maybe you want to make your yearbook searchable so people can find the picture of their father or their grandmother, and so you could take that project on. Let me just show you how we approach an indexing project that's going to leverage the power of machines. So what we do is we try to auto-index the record. And the way we do this, so I just have some pictures that kind of show you the process. The first step is we try to deskew the image. So those blue lines that you see are fitting the vertical lines that it sees on the document, and then basically rotating the image to make it be perfectly straight. Okay? Once we get it perfectly straight, then we can basically sum the pixels horizontally and look for where the line breaks are. Okay? So now that we've figured out where the vertical lines are and where the horizontal lines are, in that middle picture you can see that we can basically split the image into little boxes. And then once we split the image into little boxes, then we can do handwriting recognition on each of the little boxes. And so you can see here this whole process. We're taking a 1930 census record. We're deskewing, line segmenting, splitting it up into little pieces, and then doing the handwriting recognition. And then there on the far right, you can see the output. So this is actual output from this process, and you can see that the machine did a pretty good job. And in fact, we're finding that the machine is getting better and better over time. And the neat things about machines is that once they learn, they don't forget unless you tell them to forget. And so, you know, humans all the time, we learn things and we forget them. The machine, once you teach it, it's a fantastic learner. And then it can do that same level of performance over and over and over again. And then what you can do is you can teach it new things. You can give it new examples, new training material, and the machine will get better and better at learning. And so we think that it's quite possible for many record collections like censuses or vital records or yearbooks that the machine is going to do a really good job at being able to read the text and turn it into searchable data. Now, the machine doesn't always get it right, and so that's why we have these other tools that I talked about earlier, where we can do reverse indexing or mobile indexing. So again, the combination here is that let the machine do what it does best. It's really good at processing 200 million records and getting pretty close to the true output, and then let the human do what it does best, which is the really fine, detailed discernment. Because to be honest, let me just give you one example of a surname that the machine does really poorly at. It's the surnames Wait and Write. So think in your mind about what those surnames look like if you write them in cursive, Wait and Write. The machine is actually doing horrible at it. If you were to, and you can even go check this out, type in Write or Wait, and you're going to see that the machine only gets it right about half the time. Whereas for something like Price, it's doing a really good job. Okay, so the first step in that 4-step process is index. And the whole purpose of index is to give us raw materials to work with at the other 3 steps. Okay, the second is to link. And I already told you about these tree extending hints. I think these tree extending hints are really fantastic. And in fact, what you see on your screen here is you have access to 3 URLs that will allow you to access tree extending hints. Okay, I would start with the first one. It's probably the best campaign that I've ever used. We use it all the time to help new converts find 100 names to take to the temple. It's what I almost always use when someone wants to grow the family tree. The neat thing about this campaign is it'll look for tree extending hints for people that you're related to. Okay, so I would start there. It's really awesome. If it doesn't come up with any hints for you, then maybe reach out to us and we can maybe find out what it is. Most commonly what it means is maybe you need to grow your tree a little bit, so there's more endpoints that it can provide hints for. Or it might be that maybe your ancestors are from a country where there's not good records, in which case this won't work. Okay, so I think you can always start by growing your own family tree, because that's always going to be the most meaningful. Now, for many of you, your tree is well grown. Like you have a very full, very complete tree, which is awesome. It means you're going to have some of the best discovery experiences. You can always see how you're related to other people. You can see how you're related to famous people. It's just a really neat place to be. So when you're at that place, then what you should do is think about, how can I get other people to that same place? How can I help other people have a complete tree like I do? And so for that purpose, we've created these other 2 places you can go. We have a volunteer portal where you can help grow the tree for other people by using record hints. Again, what you're doing is you're looking at a census record, deciding if it's a match, and if it's a match, you attach it. And many of the times that when you attach that record, you're adding in new children. So you can try that out. And then we've also created a customized hints app that I showed a picture of earlier, in which you can type in your surname or a place, and you can grow the tree for a particular family name or a place. So let me just show you what that looks like. And again, with your phone, if you scan that QR code, it'll take you right into the app, and you can try it out. So in this case, what I've done is I've typed in price. And so when I typed in price, all these dots appeared all over the map. And so those are all record hints for people whose surname is Price. And so in the upper right, you can kind of see that I've zoomed in. And that's what you would see if you clicked on one of those dots. If you click on one of those dots, it'll say Price, Jefferson, Kentucky. That just means that there's a person with the last name Price in the county Jefferson, Kentucky. And then if you click on that link for Price, Jefferson, Kentucky, it'll take you right into SourceLinker. And then once you're in SourceLinker, you can decide if it's a match or not. And then the neat thing is, once you click on that link, you're the one that gets to do it, and then that dot will disappear. And so as you do more dots, the dots disappear and you can actually see your progress. The way to make the dots disappear is just to hit the search button again. When you hit the search button, it'll refresh the dots and you'll see the dots disappear. In fact, a really fun youth activity is to have everyone working on the same county, and then you're going to see the dots disappear in real time. And there's actually this kind of exciting moment right when those last dots get snatched up and disappear. I actually did this with one of the wards in where my son's serving his mission. And it was kind of neat to see the dots disappear as we worked on it together. Okay, so that's the link part. So again, first part is index, create the raw materials. Link is then take the information from those records and see if we can attach it to people that are already on the tree. Okay, a record hint involves a person in a record being the same as a person who's already on the tree. Now you might ask, well, what do I do if nobody in the record is on the family tree? There's going to be no record hint. Okay, you might have this family in the census that has 5 people, a mom, a dad, and 3 kids. None of them are on the tree. There's going to be no way to add them to the tree using a record hint. Okay, so that's where we move to step 3, which is grow. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about ways you can grow the tree. So there is this feature when you click on recent in Family Search. There's this little feature called Add Unconnected Person. Okay, so what you can do is you can actually add a person to the tree that's not connected to anyone else. Now you might be saying, well, that's a little weird. Why would you do that? Well, think about that census record. We have the census family, and I don't have any way to put them on the tree because they're not connected to anyone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the information from the census record to add an unconnected person for the head of household. Then I'm going to attach the census record, which becomes a tree extending hint, and then add his spouse and the children. Now what I have is on the tree is a little family. We call this like a little mini tree. Now the neat thing is that once that mini tree is on the family tree, other record hints start to show up. So maybe you'll see a marriage record that gives you the maiden name of the wife. Maybe you find a death certificate for one of the kids. Maybe you find a marriage record for one of the kids. Maybe you find the family in the next census, and there's 2 more kids that have been added to the family. Maybe you find the father in a previous census record where he's living with his parents. You can see that once I have that mini tree, I can basically grow out in any direction, and I'm going to grow out until I connect to the family tree. So even though initially what I'm doing is creating a little mini island that's unconnected, eventually that little mini island is going to grow and then hit the family tree. I already told you that over 70% of white people are on the family tree. So if you put a white family on the family tree, and then start to branch out, you're going to crash into the family tree very quickly. This is where we discovered that actually the coverage for black families is quite a bit less, because we would put a black family on the family tree and then try to branch out, and we would branch out and branch out and branch out and never crash into anything. So we're trying to change that. And so now in the United States, if you add, or at least in the next couple of months, in the United States, if you add any family to the family tree, I bet you that as you branch out, you're going to crash into other families that are on the family tree. Now that's something you can do just on your own. You could pick a record collection and do it yourself. If you'd like to have a tool that makes it a little bit faster, we've partnered with Goldie May, which is a fantastic Google Chrome app. It's kind of a Chrome extension that you download, and then it allows you to enhance your experience with Family Search. Richard Miller developed it. It's a really fantastic tool. You should try it out. And on that website, there's a volunteering tab. And if you click that volunteering tab, there's a little video and some instructions. But if you click on that, it'll help you through the process of adding a family to the tree. And then once you've added that family to the tree, then you can grow those little mini trees out until you crash into other people. Now, if you want to go really big, this requires a family history center. And so if you have access to a family history center and would like to use it during COVID, just reach out. We would love to help you with this. And if you scan that QR code, I'll show you a video of me at the Springville Family History Center. The center's been closed during COVID, and so we've been able to use all 12 computers to add families to the tree. And we add about 10,000 families to the tree every day that we run it. And so this has been a really great experience to grow the tree in places where it was pretty sparse. Okay, so that's grow. So we've gone index, link, grow. Now the last part is, now that we've put stuff on the tree, we need to tell people about it. We need to find compelling reasons why someone would want to come on the family tree and use it to find their family. So this last step is just about engage. And let me just show you some ways that we've tried to engage with the public. But really what your goal here is just to help people have the same neat experiences that you've had with family history. So I think the first group you should try to engage is your family. In fact, one of my great successes within family history was converting my parents over to family history. It's just been so neat to see them use family history in ways that I wouldn't have anticipated, and just see them kind of get involved, and it's been a great experience. So I wanted to get my own family involved. So you see here in the upper left, this is my wife and some of my kids. And so what we decided to do was a community reconstitution project for the Grossnickel family. My wife's maiden name is Grossnickel. There's not a lot of Grossnickels. So I think there's like 400 Grossnickels in the 1900 census. They are now all on the family tree. And we've started to connect every Grossnickel that shows up in any record to the family tree and connect them to each other. We'd heard that all Grossnickels were related to each other through these 2 brothers, and from what I can see on the family tree, it looks like that is exactly right. So if you have a unique surname in your family, this might be a great place to start and a great way to involve your kids. Another way to engage the public is to go look for unique content that people might have an interest in. So this is me, this is my son. We're in the Grangeville Historical Society in Grangeville, Idaho. And if you look across those shelves, they have so much amazing stuff. They have photo albums, they have yearbooks, they have newspaper articles. They've just gathered so much amazing content in one place. And you should definitely, if your family's from Grangeville, you should definitely visit and go look at this content. The thing is that that's a haystack full of needles. And so you need to know that that haystack exists, and you have to look through the needles in that haystack. A different way to engage the public is to grab the haystack that's right next to you, grab all the needles, even if they're not your needles, and stick those needles on the family tree. Imagine if all the content in that room was available on Family Search, on the profiles of the people that it belongs to. You'd have that content, which is sitting in a room right now, have a huge impact on hundreds of thousands of people that would have access to photos of their grandparents, photos that they didn't even know exist, and other newspaper articles and yearbooks and other just amazing content. So that's another way to engage the public, is think about content that's unique. And it might even be content sitting in your house or maybe sitting in your library or in a museum. Another way to engage the public is to let them see how they're related to each other. So I think what's going to happen is in your community, there's people that are family that don't know it. And so one way to engage the public is to encourage them to get on Family Tree and then find ways to use Relative Finder or relatives around me to see how they're connected to each other. You can also do a county fair, stopping people and saying, hey, Family Search is a free app that lets you see your family. Would you like to see if we could find your family? And we found that about half the time we were able to find the person's grandparents or great-grandparents. That was a pretty neat experience. You can also do big youth activities. This is a stake youth activity we did, and each of the kids was able to look and try to find family names to take to the temple. And there's something really powerful once they have that temple card. And that neat thing about that temple card is it's a real person, and that real person wants to be taken to the temple. And so it starts to call out to them and say, hey, when are you going to the temple? And so I think if we want to tether our youth to Jesus Christ, we want to tether them to the temple. The temple is the most powerful place to feel close to Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. And so the more we can have our youth going there to do temple work, the better. And then this last one in the lower right was at a Boston Red Sox game. I went with some friends, and I just said to person sitting next to me, I just said, hey, you want to see if we're cousins? And so now notice he did not have a Family Search account, but I did. And so I just said, tell me about your grandpa. I typed in information about his grandpa on my phone where I'm logged in, and then I just hit the button for view my relationship. And it turns out that we were seventh cousins. And that was kind of a really neat discovery experience. And it made him want to use Family Search and go and discover and see these things that were already there. So hopefully this gives you kind of ideas of ways that you could get involved. So what I'm really hoping would come out of a small class like this, so there's probably just a small group of us right here, right now, listening to this class. But think of all the people that you could touch. Think about, could you create a stake youth activity? Could you create a ward youth activity? Could you reach out to the YSAs in your area? Could you create kind of a neat discovery experience? Could you do something at the county fair? Could you do something at the library? Next time you're at a baseball game or in a taxi cab, do you feel confident enough that you could reach out to someone and say, hey, do you want to see if we're related? Let me just share kind of two last stories. One is my own story, and one is one that Eric Jensen shared with me. And then I'll just kind of close. So this county fair in Oregon was a really neat experience. It's actually one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. The first day was actually crazy hard. I don't know why it was hard for me, but I just got scared and I clammed up, and I don't know, I was kind of embarrassed that I didn't feel comfortable talking to people, and it kind of brought back some of my insecurities and anxiety. And so I was literally just going to go back to Utah the next day. But I had this really neat experience in which Heavenly Father just said, hey, just love the people. And so the next day I just approached people with love and this desire to just connect. And I had some really neat experiences. But one in particular was with Fred Harmon. And so with Fred, I just said, hey, tell me about your grandpa. And within 30 seconds, that picture came up. It was a picture of his dad. And in fact, if you click on that picture, you can see the full picture. It includes his dad, his mom, and other people. And this was just really touching to him. And what was so neat is that Fred then ran quickly and got his friend and said, hey, Tim, you got to try this out. You got to see if they can find your family too. So I think there's something really powerful about that connection that can come when people see these photos, this content of their family. The other neat thing is then I could hit view my relationship, and it turns out that Fred and I are cousins. That's, again, another connection point. This other story is one that Eric Jensen shared with me. It's such a neat story. At Roots Tech, Eric felt the impression to go just out, and he saw a homeless person and said, you should come in and listen. And so this homeless person came in with him into Roots Tech, and Elder Bednar was speaking. And I was in the room too, just in a different place. And I still remember that moment. Elder Bednar said, reach the person next to you and ask them about a family story. And so Eric Jensen asked this person about a family story, and he talks about his dad. And Eric says, well, let's see if your dad's on the family tree. So Eric's able to look up this person's dad. And again, it's one of those discovery experiences. The discovery experience when you find your family for the first time. Now, the neat thing about this story is that Eric was able to look for that dad on Ancestry and able to find a living brother for this person. And so what I love about this story is this ability to gather families on both sides of the veil. I think people want so bad to know how they're connected to their parents and grandparents. They want to know things about their family. They want to know their family story. In fact, a lot of the times when we're working with African Americans, they really want to go all the way back to slavery, and they want to know about the slave experiences of their ancestors. These are all like rich things that we can provide on the family tree. But even more importantly is the family tree can draw people together. I think also we're going to see reunification happen. We've been kind of planning some experiences with homeless shelters to try to help them discover their family and maybe identify some of their living relatives. But these are all things that you could do. So really, under this banner of engage, what I want to encourage you to do is just think about what do you love about family history, and how do you share that love with other people, and how do you help them feel just how amazing it is. You know, the thing I would love to do is just go back to my teenage self and say, hey, family history is pretty amazing. You should try it out. Because I regret that I waited until I was 35 to start doing family history. Now, the last thing I'll just say is I just encourage you to lift where you stand. This process of index, link, grow, engage, you can do it in any context. You could do it for your hometown. You could do it for a place where you served your mission. You could do it for a place where your family's from. You could do it for one of your neighbors. Maybe your neighbor's from some other country. Maybe you could try to help them grow the tree for where they're from. And I just wanted to finish by telling you about a story or experience that really touched my life. Is my wife and I have 7 kids. My oldest is Joseph, and he was called on a mission. And this is a picture of us the night he opened his mission call. And it was just such a neat experience. And the thing is, I actually felt immediate love for the people in Everett, Washington, where he was called to serve. And so that night I went on Family Search and I looked up the census record for Everett, Washington in 1910. And I just started adding families. First I checked to see if they were already on the tree, and if they weren't, I put them on the tree. And if I put them on the tree, then I tried to connect them. And then I'd hit view my relationship. And the neatest thing happened. It was just I started feeling so much love for the people that he was serving. And since then I've continued to do this. Every time he gets a transfer, so he's in Whidbey Island right now, in Island County, I've been adding every person that lived in Island County to the family tree. Because what I want to have happen on his mission is that when he's teaching someone, I want him to be able to say to that person, hey, let's see if we can find your family. Let's see if we're related. Because I think there's something really powerful when you know that you're related to someone else. I really think that the world's going to be a different place once we're all part of the same family on the family tree, and that anyone, anywhere is going to be able to see their connections with each other and be able to discover their family. So just to close, I hope that what I tried to accomplish in this little time we had together was to just highlight some of the really powerful things that is being made possible through machine learning and artificial intelligence, and how really that those powerful things become even more powerful when they're combined with large groups of humans that are willing to bring the discernment and spirit to the experience. And also for those humans to then reach out to other humans and tell them how wonderful this work is and involve everyone in it. And I just want to bear my testimony. I know that families are forever. I felt that so strongly as I've done this work. I felt closer to my grandparents and my great-grandparents. I felt closer to my family here on earth. I really feel like God wants us to be part of families, and he also wants us to be part of one big family. And that's the other thing that's happened is I've found more love for my own family. I've also found more love for other people. That experience I had at the county fair in Oregon was really touching to me, because the moment I started to approach people with love and a desire to connect, I really felt like everything got better. And I know that Jesus Christ is our Savior, and he's making all of this possible. He's very involved in drawing together the family of Heavenly Father, because we're all his brothers and sisters. We're all children of Heavenly Father, and I know that Heavenly Father lives and is real. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.